More stories than ever are being used to express a message, like political leanings, life lessons, or similar. This is not a new phenomenon, but with a wider variety of publishing options, there are now more and more books that are written to spread a message along with entertain. While overall, Proud Pink Sky has excellent writing, it's afflicted with the same issue I've been seeing in multiple recently published books. The story is the vehicle for the message, but the message winds up affecting the story. Proud Pink Sky is well written. However, near the end, the character choices become more confusing because the message requires that they wind up at a certain place in the end. This video is to address how to take care of the story while making sure the message is understood properly. So I had a similar experience with Proud Pink Sky that I had with the menu. I came with one set of expectations, and not only did those expectations not get met, I wound up with something the opposite of what I'd expected. And the disappointment didn't even touch the wonderful experience that I'd had. Just for a bit of understanding why I had different expectations, for Proud Pink Sky, I expected a fun, campy story where the humorously named sections of the city came into play. Instead, what I found was a drama. Okay, so for this review, I'm going to do a critique sandwich. We'll begin with some positives. In the middle will be the constructive criticism, and then we'll end with more positives. There's definitely plenty to work with. To start, the world building is impressive. I actually learned quite a bit from how this author used world building techniques. For a lot of writers, this is the most difficult part. Either the story has to stop to provide necessary information, which some people may refer to as info dumping, or the information is left out completely, forcing the audience to utilize tangential information and potentially allowing the audience to become lost and confused about what's happening. This author uses excerpts from a variety of informational documents, including a guide about Berlin. Compared to our two main characters, the documents could feel out of place since they don't directly correspond to the story. However, this works because the excerpts pertain directly to the section following it. So there's a seamless transition from the excerpt back into the story using the main focus of the section to connect them. There are several logical reasons for these documents to be in the book, and one is that the documents help prime the audience for the next section of the book. In addition to priming the audience, the documents are presented as informational, so the section also teaches the audience about the world building. The information is disguised, and cleverly so. Also, I think this works particularly well because the guide could also be seen as a part of William and Gareth being introduced to the city. I can see them reading through the guide for a better understanding of how their lives will change. So these excerpts fulfill several roles, and that helps them feel more organic and natural within the text. Something else worth highlighting, the author is particularly good at inserting just the right amount of purple prose. It's not so overwhelming that I lose focus on what I'm reading, but there's just enough to keep the writing interesting. One of my favorite passages is, as his father lurched forward toward him, William grasped a nearby vase and hurled it straight at the burly man's head. Flowers fell to the floor. William! Hairy hands holding graying hair, dripping crimson. William, get back here! A bag, his things, his coat, the door. William! William! It's understandable enough to be clear, but muddy enough to mimic the adrenaline pushing William to move and not think. It's a good bit of poetry snuck into the text. Now we'll move into the creative criticism. So the only thing that seems to be affected by the message to me are our two main characters, and that is only near the end. William is affected in a minor way, but Cissie, I didn't recognize her in the end, and at the start of the story, I really liked her. She took care of her family and appeared to fully enjoy it. Cissie had felt so loving and caring when she was introduced, but in the end, her behavior turned very much selfish and in a harmful way. The end of her character arc is obviously not what the author intended, I'm sure. The best advice I'd ever received for writing is that once your book leaves your hands, you can't tell the audience anything. Of course, social media changes this now, but the lesson is still very important. Make sure everything you need to say is in your book. If a character is a jerk, show it. And I don't mean in the show don't tell sort of way. One way or another, you have to give the audience enough dots to see what you want them to see. As an example, let's dig into William's character. His blip near the end can be better explained if we go over the beginning. The audience is introduced to him first, and he's sitting in the headmaster's office. This first part serves to show us William in his current environment. It helps set up the expectation that something has to change, either William or his situation. For context, he writes a poem for his lover, Gareth, and other boys at the school find it. They attack him. William has to go to the headmaster's office to discuss what happens, and it's made clear that the headmaster knows he's gay and is sending hints that this is unacceptable. This is our introduction, showing he's already in a high-pressure situation. So when he runs, the audience understands why. This also shows that William isn't assertive. He's learned to withdraw and cause as little trouble as possible, but it's difficult for him to stay out of trouble because he can't hide who he is. William's used to having expectations forced on him. All of these passages show that William is not able to take control. Even with Gareth, their relationship is depicted as wholly good, but this little bit is a red flag hinting at a future event, while simultaneously showing William's character. These interactions go a long way to show William's normal dynamic with people. The author's obviously adept at creating consistent characters. We all have our limits, and the first break the audience sees with William is when he meets up with Gareth after speaking with the headmaster. They're talking in the streets, and William rebels by using language that would out them both as gay. Gareth is worried about this happening and has to physically stop William from speaking. While this seems like the opposite of what I was just showing about William's character, the audience is coming into William's story after he's already nearing his breaking point. This is a crack showing, not the norm being established. Throughout the book, William's character is depicted in a well-rounded manner. I really like him and felt very much invested in him finding a happy life. Except for during this one scene where I really wanted him to become a serial killer, just because the potential was there. William meets his hero, but the meeting doesn't go as he thinks. During this experience, he realizes that he hasn't escaped. He's just moved to a different type of cell. This is his moment of disillusionment. It's the perfect setup for a psychotic break. He could have been the Butcher of Berlin. I mean, I can understand why the author didn't go that route, but still. The problem for me comes near the end when there's a sudden change in William, specifically when William switches over to they. William never came across this term and had never even considered this possibility, which I think is what could have fixed this blip. On top of that, the narrator makes the switch, not William. I think I get this, that William is simply a they, no matter what, but it doesn't feel like a breakout moment, especially with the makeover seemingly being the moment William feels fully represented, while at the same time being nothing more than symbolic. What's the catalyst for the change then? One of the reasons why I see this as a minor blip is because it's arguable. Perhaps it's just the moment where he let go of preconceived notions and has decided to just be. In which case I'd argue that this isn't evidenced in the text like William being challenged in the beginning. He's not challenged with an understanding of the pronoun. He's not accepting anything. This could also be a difference in life experience, but once again, writing should provide more than enough information for the audience to understand. William's sudden change feels out of place. The bigger blip belongs to Cissie. Her summarized story is that she grew up with a gender-normative ideology. She did get the idea to marry a woman at one point, but was turned down. Funny enough, the disgust of the friend didn't stick with her, but the fact that she hadn't created lesbianism did. She always came across as headstrong to me, with the willingness to put others first when necessary. She never pursued her interest in women due to being fickle. As an adult, she marries a nice man and has 2 children. She enjoys her day-to-day life, finding contentment in what she does. And she's able to balance her life with her children's needs. All evidence points to her enjoying her life, including her family. She doesn't sound like she's delusional, convincing herself everything is good even though it isn't. She sounds like she just looks for the silver lining in every situation, and that endeared her to me. Until one day, she and her children are caught up in a demonstration. There's a terrifying moment where Cissie and the children are trapped and in danger of being crushed by the mob, but Cissie is saved by a mysterious woman who, strangely, gives her a kiss. We never find out why she did that, or at least I overlooked the explanation. This isn't necessarily an inciting incident because it was a momentary event that they were able to escape. What happened, though, is this event allowed Cissie to meet this mysterious woman and become intrigued by her, so that later on in the story, Cissie believes she sees the woman again and chases her into a previously unknown part of the city. And it's finding this location that allows her to change. Once again, this is more drama, so I really like the fact that what initiates her change isn't a single event, but a series of smaller events which leads to an opportunity for her to grow as a person. It's very subtle, not jarring at all, and it was incredibly pleasant to see how she became calmer and extended her assistance to those around her. It's like she was the same caring person who could find a silver lining in any situation. This is evidence of consistency. She moves into a new environment and adjusts to it in a believable way. The problem starts with the following. Cissie finds out Howard has joined a radical group and is planning an attack during which he expects to die. The next scene has Cissie running, and I really thought she knew where the group met. However, it turns out she was running to get her some. I get that she feels betrayed by Howard, but she does love him. Emotions shouldn't turn off so quickly that she hears he expects to die and her first thought is to go sleep with someone else. It didn't feel like the Cissie I'd grown to know. At the end of the book, there's a mirror situation where Cissie storms towards the demonstration. This is where her character cracks, in my humble opinion, due to the message. Based on her experience during the first demonstration, it makes no sense that she would wake her children up to take them, and it sounds way more dangerous than the first one they found themselves in. Why in the world would Cissie bring her children into another situation like this after the life-altering experience she had earlier in the book? An event like that should have a lasting effect on the character, but she doesn't even consider the possibility of danger. This is a severe change in her personality, where she's acting counter to what has been established. There's no reason why she wouldn't put her children's safety first. She even brought the babysitter with her, which really confused me. Maybe if the babysitter had some other business to take care of, this would make a little bit more sense, but she really should have left her children safely sleeping in bed while she put herself in danger. That would be more believable, especially considering Cissie and Sam have grown so close to one another. Near the end, we also have this explanation as to why Cissie changes, but it's not properly supported with evidence. From the moment she's introduced with her family, all of the evidence shows her loving her role. She enjoyed cooking and cleaning for her family, and while that may automatically sound like a terrible expectation, it wouldn't be for every single person out there. There are some people who absolutely enjoy this type of life, and Cissie was presented as one of them. So this sudden hatred for what she was doing doesn't come across as genuine. Also, these two highlights are directly disproven by how Howard had treated her, even at one point encouraging her to enjoy a night out, and with a person he doesn't even like, by the way, which shows that he sees Cissie as her own person and so accepts her likes and dislikes. There are so many ways something like this can be repaired. If the character has to act counter to how they've been established, they need a reasonable catalyst for that change to occur. Alternatively, there could have been little changes to how Cissie is introduced. Instead of coming across as perfectly balanced, able to take care of herself and those around her while not being overwhelmed, she could have been shown as hating her life, but repeating a mantra to show she's brainwashed. If her character's going to be tweaked a little bit to fix this, then it's going to change how she's presented throughout the book as well, because she's always been shown as independent and not caring about what others think. So it's something that each author's going to have to decide for themselves. Obviously, this is not my book. This is someone else's book. I thoroughly did enjoy it. Even with this crack, I still enjoyed it. It's super impressive the way it's written. My only goal in doing this is to point this out to writers You don't have to choose between the message and the story. Just tweak the story. The story is there to showcase your message if this is what it is that you're doing. So let's end with some positives. Here's another positive for the writing. This passage is a great example of time passing without it feeling awkward. The transition between William being told he's working at the shop to details on why William hates the shop, and where William contrasts his feelings with his father's feelings about the shop, works smoothly so that the audience's attention is never jarred. So the central idea that is connecting all of these passages is the shop. Think of it as like a baton passing from one passage to another. It's stuff like this that allows things to transition smoothly. It doesn't jar the audience. It allows them to become more immersed in the story. Looking more into world building, the Polari is used sparingly in the beginning. Having one or two used for a while allowed me to become familiar with them before other words were treated the same way. By the end of the story, more and more Polari is being used, but by this point, the audience understands the few words. And I never felt frustrated with this process. The learning was so gradual that not once was I pulled out of the story to wrap my head around the language. It really helped feel immersed in the culture. And I'm pretty sure I was fluent in Polari by the end of the book. If you enjoyed this review, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.